my refutation speech is responding to Osvaldo, and his claim is that the deportation of U.S. immigrants will aggravate the economic system. His first claim is deporting immigrants from the U.S. imposes a bigger financial burden for the U.S. government. Second is the U.S. will lower the workforce and negatively affect the economy. And third, it leaves the economy with less opportunities to expand. So first, Osvaldo states that according to Stephen Camarota, the Director of Research for Center for Immigration Studies, on April 2017, ICE reported that average cost for deportation was $10,854 in fiscal year 2016, which included apprehension, detention, and processing. However, this information was separated from the article. Camarota also states in the same article that this compares to the lifetime net fiscal drain of $65,292 for each illegal immigrant. And also in the conclusion, he says it would require highly implausible assumptions to avoid substantial net fiscal drain from this population. For his second claim, about how it will lower the workforce and negatively affect the economy, he says that immigrants make up 17.1% of the total U.S. workforce in 2014, or about 27.6 million workers. According to Ji Zong from the Migration Policy Institute, in the U.S. there are 43.7 million immigrants residing in the U.S. So that would mean there are roughly 16 million immigrants that are not a part of the U.S. workforce. And for the third claim, about how it will leave the economy with less opportunities to expand, he states that approximately 11 million undocumented immigrants currently live in the U.S. and are responsible for 3% of the GDP nationwide, and double that figure in states like California and Texas. 3% of the U.S. GDP equals $558 billion in 2016. If we were to divide that by 11 million illegal immigrants, that would leave each immigrant bringing in a GDP of about $50,727. And according to ICE, how the average net fiscal drain for each immigrant was $65,292. There is still a loss of $14,565 for each illegal immigrant. So, in conclusion, the deporting immigrants from the U.S. does not pose a huge threat on the U.S. economic system. Thank you.
Okay, well, you set up the structure clearly at the beginning. That's fine. On the first point where you're talking about the cost of deportation, you've got an interesting analysis with some data about what the costs are. The piece of evidence that suggests that there's a $65,000 long-term cost to each immigrant, I thought that was fine. And there's also kind of an extra built-in halo effect to that argument, which suggests that it requires implausible conditions to come up with a result that would alter that. So I think that that's an attempt to build more credibility for the evidence that you've got on that particular point. And I think that that's a good setup for an argument that you make later on. On the whole second point, I have no idea what you're saying here. We've got some statistics about what the workforce is, about the number of immigrants, about the number of, I don't know where the 16 million number came from. And in the end, I don't know what all of that information means. You presented it, and I don't think you make a claim. It's just not clear what the heck all of that means. Your third point, though, is a lot clearer, and that is that you kind of take the advocate's assumption about how much the economy is dependent on the 11 million undocumented workers. You divide that up by those numbers, you get the approximately $50,000 cost, and then you compare it to that $65,000 that you were talking about before, and that's when that reinforcement evidence comes in and says, look, obviously, even with a rosy prediction like the advocate has presented, we still have a $14,000 economic deficit presented by each undocumented worker. And I think there's some other arguments to be made on this particular issue, but when you're talking about the economics, I thought you had a pretty good focus. The first and the third point end up working together pretty well. The second point doesn't make much sense to me. All right, thank you.